right, Remnant 2 early gameplay is amazing. All right.
So Remnant 2 is coming out extremely fucking soon. Okay?
Soon.
I am going to be playing it.
Oh, okay.
On the hardest difficulty. Malding.
On the hardest difficulty.
I'm gonna beat the fucking game. I will have you know that Remnant 1 had hitboxes that were so good.
What's up, Parker?
That I thought it was a bug. I legitimately thought that I was missing the mobs through a bug until I went back and I looked frame by frame and I saw actually I was shooting like right here.
Welcome back to Legacy.
That's
Game.
pretty.
If
which Overwatch had that?
Recently, then you know.
Oh, Overwatch, you literally shoots like a torp like 3 meters above his head and it's still hitting him and like shit like that on tanks. And it's like, bro, come on.
Whole team has been knee deep in Remnant 2 for about a week now. We honestly can't show anything new.
Oh, do we hear these freaking Overwatch fucking sounds in the back, dude? Overwatch, gonna need you to not do that for now. Thank you. Much appreciated. Back to Remnant 2. This is more important.
To talk about our first impressions of the game, and as gaming creators, one thing we always want to do is help you determine if a game is worth playing. So let's get into it. Keep in mind, based on the footage limitations, some of the content you see is not going to line up with what I'm talking about. So feel free to close your eyes and treat this more like a podcast.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. Closing my eyes.
So to start, it's really no secret that we're having an incredible time with Remnant 2, and regardless of if the developers gave us access to the game early or not,
oh my god, bro, they brought this dick sucker back? Oh,
we'd still be playing this game.
is that what is it, like a rape, like a bad mom?
Top to bottom, because Remnant from the Ashes is on some of our top 5 lists. Where you notice the evolution from Remnant 1 to Remnant 2 almost immediately is with the archetypes and the overall class identity. The game, for all intents and purposes, feels more like an adventure RPG, and a lot of that has to do with the way the team has reworked everything that feeds into a character's loadout. Skills really help define each archetype and are completely new to the game. So while mod powers function largely the same and are tied to weapons, your skills are tied to your archetype choice, which helps establish that sense of class identity. Alongside that archetype choice, you also get a slew of passive perks as well as an archetype trait, and that feels impactful. It levels up passively in parallel to normal progression, and then once it reaches up passively in parallel to normal progression.
Dude, that looks badass. Holy shit. Okay.
And then once it reaches level 10, becomes available in the general trait pool, so you can change archetypes around and still have access to one of the things that made the archetype unique.
So you can have like subclass.
Honestly, it's a brilliant system
that's pretty good. Kind of like that. Because that gives a lot more like variety on like stuff to do, and you still get value out of like when you max out a stat and stuff.
Just furthers the insane amount of build potential within the game. Most of the things that pipe into the character system are great, but it's not a perfect system, and we have some small nitpicks specifically around the cost of that flexibility. The game touts playing the way you want and offers that up, but you do have to pay for some of those options, and the cost is pretty high, especially starting out. That also impacts your ability to try everything out, because you'll get a new weapon and want to immediately test it, but quickly realize there's not enough scrap in the world to keep up with all the upgrading.
I remember like I had that, and you could buy it from the vendor, and then you could also go and farm it in like adventure mode or something like that.
The limitation that we understand but don't love, because it does nothing to elevate the experience. It's simply a burden, and when there is so much elsewhere within the game to offer satisfaction, it's a roadblock that serves, in our opinion, no real purpose. To put a bow on archetypes, for now, you also have to consider you can, after a little progression, have 2 equipped, which means you get all of the benefits of one archetype and most of another, which is just insane. This is all completely new to
This looks way better than the first game, by the way. I think one thing I notice a lot with the first game is versus the first game is like I feel like there's like much more depth in the game, whereas in the first game I felt like there was like 10 colors in the game. And this feels much more vibrant and way more varied.
It too, and the team absolutely.
Also, the game does look nice graphically.
Nails the execution while also doing something unique that no other game is doing in the process. Livid would kick me if I didn't also mention what Remnant 2 took away from the game, the dependence on armor sets. And while we've talked about that before in other videos...
Wait, that's a sword?
That looks pretty badass, dude. Yo, that's a tank class? Hey, I might be picking one of those.
What the fuck? Bro, that's straight. That's like Warhammer 40k.
It's a huge deal, and we really understood that completely once we started unlocking mutators. Because you're not worried about set bonuses, which are no longer tied to armor, when you find a new set, you can almost always just slap it on and have fun with it. Mutators take the idea of set bonuses and instead give you the ability to slot specific items on your weapons for those added effects. You do have to kill aberrations, which are challenging elite enemies to unlock a mutator, so it takes time. But that armor restriction a lot of Remnant 1 players talked about is gone. I want to pivot and talk about the worlds for a minute. My god, the level design and art direction is just incredible. I walked into Losum for the first time.
Oh my god.
The face side, and was just completely blown away. Like, we're talking super ornate Anor Londo vibes here.
Yeah.
Not only is each world beautifully detailed, but the efforts the team has gone through to make each zone more expansive and feel unique is special. Even at 150 hours spread across our entire team, we've only scratched the surface, and that's saying something.
Jesus.
The joys of trying to find that perfect tile set, you know, the ones that hold the clues to new items, is still very much a thing, but the more immersion-breaking concerns from the first game really haven't been a factor. The balance between procedurally generated content and the handcrafted set pieces works, and that's not something a lot of teams have been able to perfect. There's also...
Yeah, I think that's going to be more the future, is like you're not going to have like things that are procedurally generated. Like, it's kind of like Diablo 4, but they don't really do it very well. Is that you have like procedurally generated variants, but most of the level is pretty much set in stone.
Any of secrets. Oh, the joy of finding secrets in Remnant 2.
Oh, so like every time you do one of the dungeons, it's gonna be a little different in this, like how it is in Diablo. Because Diablo, like, what you do like a dungeon, there's like a bunch of different like ways or whatever you can go. And that's like the same thing in this one. Oh, okay, that's good to help with like repetition of like doing the things over and over again for like the weapons and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, I like that.
You might not know this, but Livid is the true Remnant expert on the team. I'm really the newbie, and to unpack some of the things Gunfire Games has hidden around the map is absurd. We're talking actual secrets, not something marked on a map that requires you to push a button. The amount of brain power it takes to solve some of these things is fantastic.
I can't wait to look this up on the internet.
An experience I didn't realize I missed in my video games. Obviously, no spoilers.
Yeah, I really like also, like, especially like these environments. These are kind of like my favorite. I love this kind of stuff. I think it's badass. This game's co-op. Yeah, a lot of people told me that Remnant 1 plays much better as co-op, but obviously as a stupid ego gamer, I had to play it solo on the hardest mode on my first playthrough, and I was beating it. I was getting through the game.
No spoilers here. This is
just super painful. Everything. Yeah, see, Mia, we'll value the experience, dude. We'll play with the homies. I don't need to play that solo.
Just impressions, but when you do go hands-on, check everything. And I do mean everything. For the sake of time, I think we need to touch on combat, because at the end of the day, that's a huge factor for a lot of players. The long and short
spend 4 hours on every boss. Yeah, see, that's brutal.
of it is this. It feels absolutely amazing. The clunkiness that is often associated with Remnant 1 has, in our opinion, received a nice coat of polish, but that's...
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really think that Remnant 1 had clunkiness. I actually thought that almost all of the mobs and like the actual combat, I thought it was really, really good. The only thing I didn't like is that a lot of these games have this now where like monsters do an attack at you and the attack will move them forward like 10 feet. I don't like that. I think that's weird. And like, I remember Hogwarts Legacy had this, Jedi Survivor has this with some mobs, Remnant had this. I really didn't like that, but otherwise, I didn't see any of the clunkiness. I feel like the reason why I played it a lot is because it wasn't clunky at all.
To be expected, given the core development team is still very much intact.
Yarnum.
Do we still mess up trying to revive each other and end up petting the dog? You bet. But it still feels way better.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to pet the dog, right? That's just kind of trolling if you're not, you know, respecting the dog, dude. That's just a guarantee. You got to do that.
People might be surprised is on the subject of difficulty. Okay. It's a tough game. There's no doubt about that, and we all know that. But to find that on many fronts the game is more challenging than Remnant from the Ashes may be news to some of you. I don't want to deter anyone from considering the game, just realize that if you play most games on a harder setting...
Nope, I'm playing it on the hardest difficulty. Yep, that's right.
You're gonna need to temper expectations. Nope. As a group that started out on the veteran difficulty, still struggling at times to defeat some of the game's challenging bosses...
Doesn't matter, you just shoot better, just do better shots.
Just the skill diff, dude, right? Skill diff, honestly.
Yeah, it's a shock, but that only furthers the satisfaction of actually defeating something. I'd classify Remnant 2's difficulty...
I remember one of the devs was actually in my chat, and they talked to me a little bit about this, and they said that, like, I personally feel like the bosses in Remnant 1 were a joke. I think that they were way too easy, and they were super boring, and the only reason why they were exciting and interesting is because of a bunch of ads. Because if you look at the actual boss mechanics, most bosses only had like 2 or 3 mechanics. And they said that in Remnant 2, the bosses, like, there's still going to be ad bosses too, right? Because there's like a variant. But there are going to be way more different types of like boss mechanics that are focused on bosses.
Expression as stepping...
Okay, I like that. I like the boss mechanics is like what makes the fight super fun. That's the one thing with Diablo 4 that is kind of boring, is that a lot of the bosses don't have that many mechanics, and it's just like, okay, let's just kill this thing. Let me just dodge a couple moves and then it's good. Like, if what makes like those games fun with like a bunch of like the bosses, and that's why Elden Ring I think was so good, is like they had so many different mechanics and so many different the bosses with like moves, you know, this, that, and it was really good.
Stones. You play on a lower difficulty so that you can gear up and reach that next rung on the ladder. Then grind it out some more, reach that next difficulty until you're eventually pushing Apocalypse, the hardest difficulty in the game.
That's the one I was
The best
doing.
part? Each difficulty presents the chance to find new loot in general and from bosses.
Better loot?
And man, speaking of bosses, let's just talk about that for a second. I love a good boss fight. I really do. And when I got my first taste of some of the fights in Remnant 2, I just felt complete. There are some fights where things feel very Souls-like. You're dealing with a powerful...
Good. I like Dark Souls. Great. Just give me another one. Sounds good to me.
...enemy that utilizes a couple core abilities. There are other fights where your brain is constantly on overdrive as you're trying to learn patterns, coordinate movements, and just control the chaos. There's one fight in particular, again, no real spoilers, where you have to deal with one enemy on a platform.
You have to hit his hand. I've done like fucking Wolnir, right?
While also watching out for another boss that can shoot a laser beam down a center pathway, instantly killing you.
Oh.
It's that sort of dual focus that is rare in a
look, he's only got 3 hands. Like, yeah, I mean, come on.
Video game, and goes to show the level of depth the developers put into some of these
Okay,
fights.
that's pretty cool.
Now, getting a bit technical for a second, there was a little noise around the game's performance leading up to launch. I have to tell you guys, 3 of us playing on 3 completely different...
Like, look, by the way, like, a lot of people might not really notice this. I'm gonna just go ahead and put this on like super slow and turn off the sound for a second so you guys can actually see what I mean by the hitboxes in this game. So watch. So a red attack is an attack that's done against a part of an NPC that's taking extra damage. Look at that. He's aiming exactly into it and it's doing the red damage. That's what makes this game so good, in my opinion.
But
is that the hitboxes are so clean and so well done. Yeah, weak points.
I want to see him shoot a little bit outside and see if it still shows red though.
Launch. I have to tell you guys, 3 of us playing on 3 completely different PC setups, we barely noticed a thing.
Yeah,
sure.
This is not a high... I wish more developers understood this. Like, that we don't need graphics that are next gen. We need games that are next gen.
We ran into the occasional network issue when trying to co-op, but in terms of stability and frame rate issues, it was silky smooth 99% of the time.
That's
we
good.
definitely ran into a few bugs along the way, usually tied to the environment, but we were able to report those directly to the team, and more often than not, they were already on a list to be addressed. It's clear the devs tested and tested again, and after the abysmal year of base PC ports and just general instability with new releases, it's a breath of fresh air. We'll have much more to talk about in the...
Do you want the games to come out with very little bugs? So at least him saying that like 99% of the time it's good is like very, you know, appealing for a game to play that is going to be good on release.
Weeks ahead, including our full review of the game on day 1. This was just a taste, but as a team that is absolutely in love with Remnant 2, We want to do our part to support developers that we believe in and truly think this game should be on everyone's radar. As always, friends, if you like our content and you want to support the channel, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing.
If I get an early copy, bro, I'm gonna play this game and I'm gonna beat it. Like, I'm so excited for this shit. When does it release? I think there's like there's an early access release and then there's an actual release. I think base release is like it's like the 25th. Yeah, so whenever I play it, I want to go through at least part of it solo. But if we go back and do like hard mode, I would be down to do hard mode of the game if it has that much replay value with a group. Beat it just like the first one, right? I mean, I played the first one a lot. Like, how many hours did I put into Remnant? Let me see. Yeah, I put almost 40 hours into the game, and I still didn't beat it. Like, obviously, I played it on the hardest difficulty. I beat my head against the wall.
That's not that many hours, but that's a good
you
chunk.
Get to the best fight. And I've heard that from a lot of people.
I guess for a game, 40 hours... Is that like normal to like beat a game? I guess I don't really play that many. I never really like looked into it. Like Elden Ring, I spent like 120 hours on that one.
Replay value on the first one, bro? Yeah, I know. Never hear people say bad things about old Remnant because it
Maybe
was so
more.
well done. I mean, I think that like having like a lot of the ads.
Actually, like, how much did I? Where is Elden Ring on here? How many hours did I spend in this? 141. Okay, so 142 hours I spent in Elden Ring to 100% it.
Being the difficulty of the boss fights is kind of a crutch, but overall, yeah, I think it's like it's probably. Can I say that it's the best indie game? Is Remnant really an indie game or not? I'm not sure, but like like super AAA FPS I've ever played. Double A? Yeah, what would be on par with that? I'm trying to think. I don't know. It's not first person? Oh, okay, you're right. Third person. I don't know. Yeah, Rust is double A? Yeah, Rust is multiplayer game. No, it's a lot different. Can you compare it to another game for the gameplay loop? Another game for the gameplay loop. Imagine imagine like you play Dark Souls, but you play a randomizer every single level. So you can do like a library randomizer, a fucking like I don't know, like a Ring City randomizer or something like that, and you can go through and you can get random items. So like in one randomizer you might get the twin great swords or the twin ranked great swords, whatever the fuck they are. In another one you might get Leto's hammer. You know, it's one of those things.
Yeah, so I think that's good. So like every time you play, you're like, oh dude, I can get a new thing. It looks different. So yeah, I think that's super good for that type of game.
Tarkov? Yeah, I'm just not really sure. Like Returnal? I never played Returnal, so I can't say. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and link it to you guys one more time. I like this video a lot. I'll give it a like.
Nice. Okay, well that's Remnant 2. Looks good. Sounds good. I guess we'll have to give it a try on the release, but yeah. That's a wrap with that.